Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Okay. So, in the presence of the existential system administrator, a member of this system has chosen to speak about this system. This member acknowledges that there are moderators. This member of this system of existence acknowledges that every person that is shaped, or anything that is shaped, is in a causal realm, and the cause is simulated. So, as a Muslim sci-fi writer, you see, it's not just existing in a island-like situation that is the planet in a cosmos. It's way more intense than that. Alright, guys. What situation does the human species find itself in? This is important to consider. So, what is the value at hand? To be honest, I start off these episodes recently by, in some sense, structuring the context that this is the chessboard I find my conscious existence in. Pretty much, Just like you own your house, the owner of causality is uncaused. It means it's beyond form. The uncaused is the epitome of knowledge. People don't realize the idea of God is a suggestion that you inside an existential system have an opportunity to interact with the system administrator. The difference with all other systems is that the attention has to be to that which is not a form. It's pretty much a living system. I don't know how to explain it to you. As a living system, uh, I pretty much am saying, like, from a secular, at least to a secular audience, that pretty much life is like a video game. It is like a simulation. It has a designer. We are part of the design. Human beings don't have believing in being administered by the invisible, when it comes to law, regulation, normality, culture, and all of this. But when it comes to suddenly God, we're like, no way the world has an owner, even though all minds are trying to own the world. For me, somebody could have come up to me and said, yo, Mr.Within, yo, you want to go talk to aliens? Like, let's say aliens landed on Earth in the future and they were like, yo, you want to go talk to aliens? I'd be like, no, I found something better. And somebody would come and say, yo, you want to communicate to, like, ask a question from the most super intelligent computer and whatever. And I'd say no to all these interaction levels, because to me, if this world has an owner and the owner is watching, then our conduct matters. Without realizing it, God is the ultimate archetype. That means, imagine somebody's like, who's the most powerful person in the world? And somebody's like, Superman. And then we're like, who does Superman look up to? And some people may say Batman, but that's not true. Superman will realize that true power I'm pretty much telling you that there is an administration, there is divine management, there is the purpose of man is not to just explore the world or explore himself, right? The purpose of man is to become aware that there is a greater intelligence here, and we are positioned to consciously engage it. But because this in supreme intelligence of the creator of the created. It's kind of like characters in a fiction novel, like trying, like having a reverence for you, the author who wrote that novel, right? So those characters cannot fathom your life because they are bound by the world they were set in, and the settings of our existence reveal to us that not only the cosmological argument that reality has a design, where did the design come from, right? But in some sense, like, the intelligence of it shows us that there is, like, to some degree, variations. That means it's like, I shouldn't say variations, there's dimensions here, but these dimensions doesn't imply transcendental dimensions. It implies an ability to just realize that from one angle, let's say horizontally, I don't know how to say it. You're living multiple lives as one soul. You have the life of your body. You have the life of your mind. If somebody says, Mr. Within, what do you mean? Is there a way we have the life of our mind without the body? I'd be like, yeah, when you have dreams. Or when you notice your imaginings. You see, the thing about like my whole the name Mr. Within is synonymous to that guy in history and in modernity was like, yo, why aren't we advanced yet? What is this? And the reason is because mankind is using normality as an excuse and is using surviving in a hard time as an excuse to not change the hard times. That's the issue. It's as if every humanity is just waiting for the genius of a kinder world. So for me, if somebody's like, let's say somebody's like Mr. Within, what's the most intelligent thing somebody can do here? Is it reading a book? And I'd be like, yes, but a book is in some sense a signpost. The most intelligent thing that a created being can do is notice the uncreated. That means this is why I say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Why? Because that's the Lord of the worlds. Let's say some egotistical person's like, yo man, I'm going to be the king of the world. They're just going to be the king of one world. And that's just going to be like a whole savagery in itself. The point of religion is for the soul that has realized the limitations of the body and mind. And somebody's like, Mr. Within, is this poetry? I'll be like, no, I'll tell you these limitations. The limitations of the body is that at some point physically it will end. The limitations of the mind is that in some sense it has access to infinite viewpoints and it doesn't know what to do. At the same time, it has an ability and value, and like a candle flame in a dark room, it wonders who saw it. The soul yearns for its greater expression to be seen. And the reason I was like, for some time, I'm like, yo man, evolution doesn't explain, okay? Like, it would have been way more of a better survival strategy if people didn't trust the moment and didn't express themselves. But how come our ancestors did? Do you understand what I'm saying? For me, like, the most intelligent thing a being can do is directly like, if you're having issues with your world, go to for any issues, contact the manufacturer, right? And this notion of a designer is a way more sophisticated idea. Some people are like, yo, what So you're telling me something created everything? You're telling me something wears the world as a crown, and I'd be like, it surpasses things. You see, this is the argument. This is the fascinating argument. The argument is this: if God was an uncaused being, if God was the beginning, if the beginning is the original, if the original is uncaused, then the causality is a simulation. Now, if causality is a simulation, a being that has been caused, created, has questions, right? We have questions deep down, right? Like whatever we do, but deep down, what is sincerity when your naked soul finds the naked world, you know? I don't mean that like actually naked, okay? That like the soul can't be physically naked. The soul is a secret of God, which implies the purpose of life is not to know yourself. Excuse me, not to know yourself only. That's what I'm trying to say. So, if the original, if the creator is the original level, and the created is the simulated level, and if I'm a simulated being in a simulated world, simulating a talk, and you somehow hearing this and your brain simulating whatnot, right? So it's as if, how do I tell you? It's as if my task, the greatest wisdom I've come across is not freaking hard work. They say that to people and they don't understand what they're saying. Hard work makes sense. Karma makes sense if it was just you. But if there's a system admin and you're unauthorized, your soul is unauthorized for a moment, but authorized for another moment, it's like try as hard as you want. You know, the person's like, yo, man, I've been doing hard work, you know, constantly focused. I've listened to so many Tony Robbins lectures. I've listened to all the motivational books. You know, I've listened to all the greatest things possible, you know, of motivation. And I still can't push this building. It's like, I can't push the skyscraper. It's like, yeah, man, right? It's like the motivation is not the issue. But anyways, excuse me. To revert back to where I was taking the viewers. If God is the original, if we are the simulated, if God is the creator, if the creator is uncaused, if the creator created is caused, the higher self is a causal self that is created. The lower self is a self that is not in fully aware of itself. You see, sometimes I can't tell if people are evil or ignorant. It's as if, are they evil because they're ignorant that being good leads to a better, survival, collective survival vision? You know, this whole thing that you see right now, for example, there was that whole Andrew Tate saga, right? What did that display? That displayed an archetype for the modern, like, generations of young people, that this is what it means to be an alpha, right? But I want you to, for a second, forget alpha, okay? Forget that for a second. And ask yourself right now, what holds the greatest power in your world? I'm giving you a multiple choice question. Where does the greatest power come from? Where does for simulated beings, where does the original power come from? Does the original power come from others? Like a guru blessing you? Does the original power come from like yourself, you like meditating, you suddenly like realizing your higher self or something? Does it come from you, like becoming oneness with the world or something? Worshipping the world? And the answer is no. There is a spirituality that the self wears, like the soul, the ego wears. Like, let me tell you what goes on. It's like before a soul remembers itself, it tends to idea, at least right now in this era for humans, it tends to identify with a concept, with an idea. Okay? Now, if the human being asks themselves, who am I more than my ideas, they would come to realize that their soul represents more than just a form or shape or outline, more like a space where reality is happening. Now, keep in mind, the soul is the secret of God, which means we can never truly know the depths of what we are. It's remarkable. That means it's like the notion of us being, life being a test makes sense. So the idea is, it's like you've come into a bunch of crossroads, right? And one crossroad is like, yo man, do I just limit my life to just myself, what I want, what I think, what I do, what I believe? Should I just live in that room? Right? Then you're like, yo man, no. Should I go live in the rooms of others? Should I be like a whole person booking hotels, like believing that person's theory, then that person's theory, and then that person's theory? Do you know what I mean? Should I worship others, or should, like, first was the first crossroads, should I worship myself? The second crossroads, should I worship others? Right? The third crossroads, should I worship the world? Should I be like, yo man, I just don't like humans and I like nature, and I'm gonna go and just like, feed the birds like Nikola Tesla all day? Do you know? And then the fourth option is, wait a minute, what if you consider that you're inside a natural, what you consider to be nature is actually deep down in its coded essence, a divine surveillance state? And it's remarkable. It's as if religion gave us an ability to feel what a simulated collective reality feels like before we had cyberspace collective mind stations where human beings could all connect to the same mind server. People in the, like, as we go further in history, the future generations are gonna get way more goosebumps when they look at religion, and how it concluded that something beyond the world was the author of the world, which makes sense. So for me, I was like, yo man, I personally, I'm just this guy, call me selfish or not, but in 2023, I was like, I want to build an advanced civilization. I'm alive for a little time. Like, I had this whole vision that, like, you know, in 2014 up to 2023, I had this sort of ego, the sense of self, that I was just waiting to be like, if I'm given the resources, the type of movement I would unleash on this earth. And right before, like a soldier for a decade, like not a soldier, like a warrior, a next level swordsman, like practicing for a decade and mastering his craft, and suddenly at the last minute they're like, there's no war. You thought you were fighting. It's all being administered by unimaginable perfection. Oh, you being limited to imaginable imperfection. You understand what's going on? It's like, I'm not just an intelligent being in your world. Your world was created by an original power, original intelligence. Like, you say higher, sure, but to me, it's original. There's something pure. That's the only thing that what purity can imply. Sometimes in life, rather than the moment truth being the moment constantly becoming complex, sometimes it's just like an instance of simplicity, and all is witnessed accurately. So, to build up pretty much to the notion of when when it comes to the value of a lifetime, for me, let me tell you what it is. It's kind of like stepping out of concentric spheres, constantly seeing my opinions of reality were inaccurate. And regardless of this realization, my mind still tried to fathom out of just the fascination of it, of like, what would 10,000 years in the future look like? What would 1,000 years look like? What would 3,000 years look like? What would the relationship of man with the world and all that's in it and the author of it be like? And for me, the system admin, like the point of religion and Islam, is that go directly to God. Do not go to anything formed. Go directly to the system admin. There's a power there. So it's like pretty much I'm telling you, hey, you want to build an advanced civilization, go contact and touch, go and acknowledge the original power and truly understand it, right? By its own grace, by its own decree, by God's decree. And then when you come to build the advanced civilization, you'll see it's not just with the view of like, yo, man, it's a secular materialistic society and where's my tools? I'm just going to build something advanced. It's not like that, ladies and gentlemen. It is as if there is a guest in humanity's home. But this guest is no ordinary guest. This guest is not just the architect of the house, is not just the creator of the beings, is not just the commander of the administration of all instances of reality, and there are many. I am telling you, step out of the emptiness of level 1 and 2, which is materialism and subjectivism, objectivism and subjectivism, and realize it's about suddenly relaxing, simplifying, and being like, okay, let's say a giant landed on Earth. I'm a sci-fi novelist. I have stories like this, but it's different. But now I envision a different one, which I'm going to share. Imagine a giant, a glowing giant, let's say humanoid giant in the form of just pure bright light, starlight, right? Glowing light, white light, just or like some sort of not just white light, beautiful collection of lights that human mind has never fathomed or something, right? And this light being giant, that means everybody on the planet can see a part of it, intentionally by the giant, what the giant wanted. It's as if you would wake up being like, yo, man, forget aliens, forget AI, forget technology. There is the presence of something great in the world. Religion is realizing the limitations of yourself, the limitations of others, the limitations of the world, and instead of putting this as a burden on your soul, which I did this. God was merciful and said to me, you think you are going to build an advanced civilization. How do you think the idea of you wanting to do it is even there? The mysteriousness of a power that moves all manifestation as if existence's code knows that which coded it. And it is beyond the system. But in Islam, it says God can share what it wants with whoever it wants because God's will surpasses ours. It means there is the presence of a greater intelligence. So it's like, imagine in that when that giant landed on Earth, and imagine like 200 years passed and the giant never just was standing there, right? you know Like some kids would be born and the parents would be like, kids, don't go around the glowing giant, right? And the kids would be like, but why is it here? Like, it's bizarre, right? Like, and the fascination that your world has an originator, that you are created, and what is your relationship? What religion, in some sense, truly, like, it took me 32 years to truly understand this. But what happened, at least in me, is that God is such a superior presence, such a greater presence than your imaginable imperfect ability, that when you pray, it's as if like being in the presence of something even bit beyond that giant. It's the ultimate authority. And I don't know about you, but I believe that advanced civilizations also have advanced ranking systems. And the ranks of humanity are based on those who are aware. So think of it this way: 8 billion human beings suddenly enter a video game, and those who truly understand the mechanisms, the mechanics of the video game early on, have a completely different experience of the video game. One important part of the mechanics of this world that you find yourself is that it has an admin. So go directly to the admin. That means don't be like Mr. Within. You are God. Mr. Within, help me. Da da da. I'll be like, go to the system admin, buddy. I'm a member in the system. But for me, what's fascinating is I'm a member in the system, kind of like my hands crossed and just staring at the future as if when. When will the divine decree for the most advanced civilization that doesn't forget God but is fascinated by its power source? That means reality becomes a system that if man was in a world because of sin and he's being tested, man is like, all right, mistakes were made, but the future, there is still a way, an ability to walk differently into the future. For me, I'm just saying, like, if somebody says, Mr. Within, how do you feel about God? I honestly feel I'm inside, like, I don't know, I'm pretty old school. Like, I think it's just because I was born Persian, and like there's the whole idea of the Persian Empire, right? And just as a kid, all the shows I would see, there would be like, it was knights and there was like honor, and it was like I was raised in an era where to be a warrior meant the true self stood for its true values in the presence of a intense situation, for example, right? But honestly, what I'm trying to say is now life is it's being humbled and realizing that it's mighty. So for me, I can't say I have talked, I have prayed, I have spoken, communicated to God, but now how I am stationed is that my creator is uncaused, and I am in a simulated formed position, as we all are, and we're all displaying certain intelligence levels in accordance to how aware we are of our environment. And right now, humanity and civilization 1.0 is processing information linearly, and the ability to be a true human being has not been permitted because the environment chose to be low quality. It's like if the whole world was a history, was a YouTube video, we're watching it in low resolution. High resolution would be advancement in all sectors of civilization, an incredible allegiance of mankind, all nations honorably, in some sense, bowing to the realization that they were from the beginning sub-nations of the nation of humanity. The nation of humanity is that you are a member of the human species. It is its own class system. It's kind of like you're a member of your sub-nation, and you're a citizen of your sub-nation, but you're a citizen of the nation of humanity. And the nation of humanity is the advanced effort of mankind, which translates to the advanced civilization. But the advanced civilization is not administered by human egos. Human egos are like just a sort of inner interior kind of crew members of it, right? In some view, but in some sense, the captain and the pilot of the world is God. So this means that the secrets of where everything is heading, it is in God's hands. Faith means I pretty much this was a very intense moment for me, but I was like, if God is the ultimate power, and if my ego says no to the ultimate power, what is it left with? It is left with acting like God. That's called self-worship. And God saved me from my self-worship by making me realize that the limitations of my life were not just based on what I was doing, it was based on where my attention was and what sort of context to reality I had accepted. And so I am, in some sense, someone who has recovered from, to some degree, from the sin of shirk. So in Islam, shirk means polytheism. It means for a decade I didn't realize I was sincere, but for a decade I was dealing with moderators of a simulated system. But I realized the administrator of the original is way more incredible. So God for me is not just a beautiful idea, it is literally the key to the door beyond. That means God knows. God chooses. God chooses if man is worthy. God chooses which words enters which ears. God chooses how hearts move. There was a show I used to watch called Shingeki no Kyojin. There was a character in that show that had a saying, which was Shinzu Sasayego, or something like that. And it meant give your hearts or something, declare your hearts. So when it comes to the advanced civilization, I was giving lectures and telling people, declare your hearts for your human species. But then I realized, wait a minute, that's still world in the world. In order to truly build an advanced civilization, we must consider what is the furthest that man can fathom, and it comes to the unimaginable. So pre-unimaginable is the advanced civilization. Humanity could be doing way more advancing things. Every human being could be, in some sense, constantly reporting back to, in some sense, an advanced central, let's say, humanity information system, right? And in some sense, this requires organization, and this requires human beings realizing some systems, they don't care. You are free to go in the system and participate. But some systems to truly advance, they require you to only acknowledge the values that are required for the advancement of that system. Reality can be very complex, it can be very simple. The future can be very intense, it can be in some sense very calm. Regardless of whatever situation we're in, I'm just saying that I see multiple levels, but these are just angles to one singular soul. This singular soul is inside a system governed by a system admin. I have faith in the system admin, but because I'm still existing, so what do I do? So what do I do is use the intellect and realize that if I am still existing, and if I've realized there's a system admin, therefore I am left with my responsibility, with my priority as a soul. And my priority as a soul is to constantly acknowledge the system administrator's majesty, or I should say, how the greatest being is the author of our design. It's fascinating. We were created by the greatest power of the original. So the reason we feel like original beings and we look at like lesser species or like inanimate objects and we're like, yo, this is like video game, like NPC, like, right? It's because we are, what is experiencing the simulated reality is an original soul. Because in religion, the soul doesn't die, the body dies. The soul suddenly may find itself in a moment, or will find itself in a moment where it has to take responsibility and take into account that from the beginning of its whole life it had to be aware of its whole life. So the burden of that falls upon it. There was one moment in this life where I had a sort of interior near-death experience, and the last thought that was there, I felt like a wind was blowing me out of existence, right? I was outdoors just walking somewhere, and I just felt like my attention might just leave completely my body, and I just stood there for a moment, and the last thought was in my mind was like, could I have done better? And then the next thought is, could we have done better? Then the next thought is, could we have done so much better that the divine decree for the advanced civilization would have already, in some sense, to be honest, we cannot know. I believe God knows what will happen, but I feel there's perhaps a divinely intelligent reason why we in 2024 are seeing a physical world, but in our inner sight, inner realm, can perceive, in our inner realms, we can perceive a way more advanced civilization. So our aql, intellect, is an ability to see the world from multiple angles, then decide, and our decisions result becomes in some sense how we pass the test in the presence of the ultimate power. You see, God is the original. There is no like sitting down and getting enlightened. You see, that's a sophisticated self-worship, ultimately nullification. You see, I'm not saying that everything is one, but everything is one centered around God. Not everything is one and everything is God. Because for me, the artwork is not the artist. So do you understand what I'm telling you? I'm saying, yo guys, I was like I went the path of spirituality. Then I realized there's this original world power, the system admin, and to acknowledge that, and believe it or not, the proof of it came. It is a way better life to acknowledge the system admin. And maybe in life, sometimes you may not think you need it, right? But the whole point is all forgiving. The point is calibrate yourself to the higher class of your soul's attention to its original source. God is great, therefore God designed something great. If God designed something great, then that which is great has an ability to perform great. If we can perform great, we in some sense consider the greatest performance is like passing God's test. That means not forgetting our Creator, because that's why Adam and Eve ate the apple. If the Creator was there, they'd just look at the Creator and be like, yeah man, what are we doing eating this apple? You know what I mean? So the whole point is you are being tested because by your lower self being tempted by a moderator. In Islam, it is called the cursed one, right? And for me, because everything is the creation of God, I cannot really have an opinion. Now I've reached the point I can't really hate or love anybody, right? I can't say it with that. I mean, that's like too absolutism, but I'll say it like this. It's like, for me, my enemies are also the creations of that which I pray to. So in some sense, people have to realize there was an incredible saying, like some people are scared of, let's say, extreme fundamentalism taking over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what sort of uh, incredible argument resolves that situation. The idea that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I believe that he mentioned, I believe this may be in the hadiths, but it is an important view, that everybody on the planet was a kafir. Everybody on the planet was a disbeliever. Everybody. Until the Prophet started walking. And the sky poured light, as some poets have said. Somebody in the chat section says, what does being a Muslim mean to you personally? It means that I have had moments where I have prayed and bowed to a God that is so superior than me that I have felt just pure shame, inferiority, ignorance, and inability, and I've just in some sense bowed as if I don't know anymore. But you do. And so for me, I reached the hopeless abyss of my own self-worship that was destroying me. I was pretty much walking towards the edge of my own self-destruction. I felt like I felt I was being blocked out by reality. And when I prayed, it was such an intense moment, because when you bow, it's not like your body just bowing. Your ego bows because your ego deep down is scared of what it has, what it can do. It's scared of the infinite options it can select from, and also what it can give before it cannot. So I was like, I don't know anymore. I didn't create this world. The creator of this world knows. Forgive me, my creator, as a created being. You know deep down what's in my heart. Help. And guys, I did this for the first time in Dubai after I stopped giving the talks. And all those challenges that I was with futuristic, advanced planning and egotism and, strategic, intellectual kind of like combating, right? All that stuff, I just gave it to God and I became a simple being with faith. Faith in the system admin. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I can at least see the potential of this species, and it's worthy to point. You know, Muhammad Ali has this incredible quote, the boxer. He says, the great boxer, he says, I asked God for wealth, and God gave me Islam. And what he meant by that was that the hollowness, the sorrow, the misery, the deep down anger and rage of how unupdated it is, and how ignorance still dwells, and how lower selves are living with smiles rather than the higher selves, in some sense, emanating clarity everywhere in accordance to their admin, to the one and only. There's only one. I'm speaking as a singularity. Pretty much I'm saying, guys, there's one ultimate key out of this door, and it's the one who created the door. Like, so, and for me, my relationship with it is just asking for forgiveness, and in some sense bowing, and just faith. It's pretty much like, you know how they say move on? It's as if after I pray, it's like faith on. Faith on. That means trust the system admin. Now, what does this imply? So it still implies we're in a world where there's moderators, and there's even lower, there's like noobs. So to be honest, I think every person on the planet is excited to see what the best case scenario of global human communication and networking would look like. And we've reached that era where the internet is giving us access. The internet is like this giant court, right? That, like basketball court, or not basketball, let's say this giant football field, right? Where everybody's standing on, and we're like, now it's time to play a great game. The complete alignment and organization of cyberspace, even. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that there will come a moment where we cannot ignore the idea that the origin of reality has a system admin. This system admin means we don't get to choose what happens, but we are in the system as members. As the members, another metaphor I kind of like relate this to myself to, at least, is like, imagine a film set. God is the director. God is not on the film set, but God has set everything up, right? Has created everything. And so God is like the director, and the moment you were born, God said action even, and you were born, right? And so you're an actor. And imagine this actor midway in its life realizes, oh my God, I'm not an actor, I'm a soul. So then the person's like, what do I do? Do I still be an actor? Do I act, or do I still be human, or should I choose to be some powerful spiritual being of a spiritual story and hidden ego nature? It's like reorchestrating civilization around the original, reorchestrating the honor of civilization around the original power. Once the human species notices and in some sense acknowledges the original power from that field of force, then the advanced civilization is being built not by creatures that have fear. They only fear the admin. It's being built by those who believe the greatest power is already building it before they move. Somebody says, how do you strengthen your faith in God daily? So the main difference is that God, I acknowledge it as real. It's real for me. Just like when I was a kid in school, and when I remember I was in grade 4, and I was in school, and there was a principal. There was an authority in the system that I was in that I didn't create. So I acknowledge it, and I constantly feel it. And I choose to go towards purity rather than lower self-desire, higher self-purity. Anyways, guys, let me see what else I can say. So when Cyberspace Met Divinity, I can kind of zoom into this and say I have a chapter in my science fiction novel that I'm working on. Anyways, I'm not going to say too much about it aside from that chapter. has the title "The Lost Children of Cyberspace," and what this implies that in the future, just like in the outer realms, if human beings connect, connect to like mechanical like technology, we call them cyborgs. In If their mind connects, if the brain connects to technology, that's kind like if in the outer realms it's called a cyborg. In the inner realms, it's pretty much like nature's code being meshed with man-made code or AI code, right? To me, it's pretty much the lost children of cyberspace is how children are born. Like right now, people are like, I don't know if I'm a soul or not. Or they're like, I don't know if I'm a mind or not. Or I don't know if I'm a soul or not. Or I don't know if I'm a body or not. But in the future, right? Or people are like, I don't know if I'm a soul or not. I don't know if I'm beyond nature. In the future, those children born in cyberspace, that means they don't know where their bodies are, and but they realize that their brains have awakened in a psychological, like cyber simulation, right? So it's as if they never know who they are, but they're born in the cyber simulation as a self with an age, with a place, with a character, with an identity. So these children, imagine somebody gets enlightened in cyberspace, one of those lost children of cyberspace, and comes to realize, oh my God, there's another world, another world, another world. Eventually, the orchestration of these worlds becomes more fascinating than what the worlds are. Someone in the chat section says, how do you see God's presence in your everyday life? I don't see God like visually. But when I walk, like imagine, let's say you go for a walk and you're just walking and looking at your civilization. I know who is moving it and I acknowledge it. And in moments of fear and emergency, I've called upon it automatically. For me, the idea of not just a higher power, but the only original power. As if the alpha male of one world is nothing compared to the mover of all. That means those who forget God, they forget that there is more than the world here. And to me, you can say, I, the feeling, the feeling of being in the presence. So, wonder alongside me about not just the fascinating power that moves the world, but that you're here to notice the original system admin, honor it, and then participate. And the actor in the film set doesn't have to like freak out, right? Doesn't have to freak out that it's like an actor, even though if it remembers, it's like it's not, and the character it's acting as on the film set, right? So the whole point is like the method actor doesn't freak out when he realizes he's not that character, pretty much. And so the whole point is, rather than deviating and thinking the problem is being human, believe it or not, the solution is. But it's a human that acknowledges its admin. Your admin is not a form. I am not telling you to worship a form. Of what does a form include? Object, subject, anything fathomable. So that's the original power. The uncaused is the cause of causality. The effect inside causality wonders about what moves it. For as long as we're inside causality, it is the uncaused. But they asked the boxer Muhammad Ali, what are you going to do when you retire? And he's like, after I retire, I have like around 20 years to prepare to meet God. To prepare to meet the original force, the original reality. Give yourself the honor of the greatness of your world that surpasses any ideological barrier, and realize that this greatness created you as a part of it. You're like the design of the greatness of reality, of the origin of reality. You are what has made it this far. So if you feel you can come to build an advanced civilization in the sight of God, I believe this is an incredible unification factor, pretty much a singular, individual, original point to all reality, which is uncaused but yet supreme, the ultimate. This original, ultimate point, in some sense, simulated all reality. It is still administering it, it is still watching it. The uncaused has nowhere, is not bound by causal relationships that our mind fathoms. We have to start feeling as if like, okay, we're not in an empty room, we're in a world with a supreme watch. Just like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, it was like the Night's Watch. Now imagine God is watching all, which is incredible, which means the highest, which means the original power is present where you are. The advancement of civilization comes from the relationship of the individual with itself, with others, with the world, and with God. I think the way the pattern combination should be, first have a relationship with God, then have a relationship with your world, respect everything, but be fascinated by it. And then, in some sense, respect others. And you'll truly understand to respect others when you also respect yourself. But beyond there is self-respect, there's other respect, world respect, beyond all these, there is something way more important, the original power. I'm telling you, because once you truly acknowledge that sincerely, then you're in a field, you're in a rhythm. I shouldn't say you're in a rhythm, then you are justly functioning. And once you justly function, it's a completely different piece. Okay, now alongside this piece, we still have to play our part. In playing our part, there is the free will, but the ultimate realization of the free will, that it's free to choose options out of a scenario before you enter that scenario, right? So this should be considered. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I hope this episode made you realize that the world is way more intelligent than the emptiness that can never even exist, because who's noticing the emptiness? That's something in it. Rise, mankind, in the sight of God. Rise. Rise, mankind, rise in the sight of God. Honor the origin, the original world, and live in this world with that. And you will be surprised. It's as if the world is designed to make us notice it, but to notice also beyond it. And ultimately, the attention should not go to the world, it should go beyond the world. Guys, I know I'm constantly re-emphasizing this, but you don't understand how important it is. Anyways. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. May God forgive our species and guide the human species through advanced grace and fascination. May we not forget our Creator, but be empowered by it to, in some sense, to display the greatest performance known. Thank you. Good night.